This week, we have 3 segments for you on the show. The first will be an interview with Patrick Lafferty from Rapid7, no stranger to the show or Security Weekly. Patrick used to work here. And he is currently working on, working at Rapid7 is one thing, but working on social engineering Rhode Island. That's not social engineering the entire state. It's actually creating a social engineering conference right here in Rhode Island. So we'll be talking about that with Patrick, among other things. Then, we'll do the security news. We'll talk about Pwn to Own, Windows and Flash vulnerabilities, Mem crashed, what John Oliver got wrong about Bitcoin, MikroTik router vulnerabilities, VMware vulnerabilities, and this is what happens when Bitcoin miners take over your town. Very interesting article. After that, there is a pre-recorded interview with Dick Wilkins from Phoenix Technologies to talk about the evolution from BIOS to what he refers to as platform firmware, or UEFI. Dick sits on the panel on the forum for UEFI, and it's a fascinating interview. So stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. I'm, of course, your host, Paul Asadorian, excited to be here, as always, on Paul's Security Weekly.
Hi, and welcome to the show. I totally introduce our host right now, but I've been a totally awkward boner.
What? Where? Oh, hey! I'm in the studio with you guys. That's kind of cool.
Sounds like a plan.
And we'll at least have one person listening.
That's right. Just
yeah, I know, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoyed your spooning with Jeff. But
hey, actually built a new office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, third baby on the way, so I needed a new office.
Nice.
I lost my old office. That's now the baby room.
Brought to you by
NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. In 2017, an increasing number of companies reported they did not have effective insider threat detection methods. Logarithm's UEBA solutions enable you to detect and neutralize user-based threats in real time, while built-in scenario and behavior-based analytics empower you to expose insider threats, compromised accounts, and privilege misuse. Visit logarithm.com to learn how their UEBA solutions can help you expand visibility and enhance detection capabilities.
And welcome to the show, where not only apparently is 911 a joke in your town, Bitcoin miners take over your town. But first, let me introduce you to our host, a man who just shows up to see if he recognizes anybody here, Mr. Paul Asadorian.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode 551. I am, of course, as Larry said, your host, Paul Asadorian, coming fresh off the heels of Secure World Expo in Boston, where we call it NetSPACA. It was a great conference. You'll hear more probably throughout the show because, we just drove back from Boston. So, to my left in studio is none other than Mr. Larry Pesci. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Hi. Sorry, mouthful of rye.
Rye whiskey is what we're drinking. Yes,
Yes.
very good. Patrick Lafferty is also here in studio. Patrick, welcome back to Paul's Security Weekly.
Thanks, Paul. This is a whole lot of fun to be down here.
Yes, we can't forget about our host on coming on via Skype. Mr. Jeff Mann is here with us. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be back again. Also drinking rye.
It's a rye whiskey kind of night.
It is.
Apparently.
It's a rye kind of night.
Couple of quick announcements. I'll go through the conferences as I stated, just coming off of Secure World Expo. We'll be posting those videos that we recorded in the booth over the day and a half that we were there. We will also then be traveling to InfoSec World next week, where there'll be shenanigans, so you should join us there. If you're not registered, you probably should do that really soon. The discount code is OS18-SW. I caught up with Rob Shane, who's running Source Conference. When is Source Conference happening? It's happening in May sometime. Do you know when Source Conference is happening, Patrick?
I can certainly look that up.
Sure. You have the Googles, or you could go to sourceconference.com. That event will be there as well. I will be speaking at InfoSec World and Source Boston. So make sure you check out our conferences. We have discount codes for all of our conferences that are normally on the wiki. So wiki.securityweekly.com.
Paul, that conference is May 9th and 10th.
May 9th and 10th. You should definitely go to Source Boston. So, Larry, you going to come to a conference with us in Boston? You go to conferences all over the world. There's ones
I know,
that happen.
and the ones that are right in their own backyard, I hardly ever make it to.
Yeah.
I have to check the schedule, but I would like to and need to, and would definitely think it's a damn good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Patrick Lafferty, so with all of the conferences that we have, you decided to create a new conference. So let's start there and talk about how you came to create the Social Engineering Rhode Island Conference.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great place to start. We can probably back up even further to how we got to that point. I seem to remember hanging out with you a whole lot way back in 2013.
Yes, you were doing do we call it a fellowship?
Yeah, fellowship, internship, sure. Paul's do whatever kind of person, I think.
Yes. Took on multiple projects here and worked for Security Weekly.
Yeah, which also kind of came about just because I run a local OWASP chapter, and you came to speak.
Patrick does all things local Rhode Island stuff. We're thankful to have Patrick do that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, we certainly try to build any kind of community that we can around here and talk about all kinds of security stuff. And I remember
you do multiple. I'm sorry, you do multiple ones now. You do OWASP.
Yes.
You do DC 401 now.
Yeah,
You're the coordinator for that.
Yeah, DEF CON 401.
And do you do something else too, a regular meeting, or are there just those two?
Just those two.
Okay.
Yep.
And now there's a conference here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at one of those OWASP meetings where you came to speak, I think we started talking about wanting to put on a conference.
Oh, yeah. And then we ran a conference together.
We did.
Which was fun.
I think we ran one of the best B-Sides conferences ever.
People still give us great feedback about that. So.
To this day, I have people saying, when is B-Sides Rhode Island coming back?
We can't top the first one.
That's exactly the answer
Right?
we give.
You blew your wad on the first one, guys.
We did. We just unloaded Paul's Rolodex.
We did. Yeah, we had a fantastic lineup of speakers. It was pretty epic.
And that's exactly the problem that I tell people. I'm like, if we can't beat that, why even try again?
Right.
So we haven't.
We probably should, but
we can try that again someday because
that was fun.
There's lots of people out there that want to see it again. So maybe we'll do that kind of thing. So after that, since we figured, or at least I figured, we can't do anything better than that with B-Sides Rhode Island, I kind of got affiliated with B-Sides Boston a little bit and kind of helped them out for a few years. And the last few years I've been like the speaker coordinator for B-Sides Boston, putting that on. And B-Sides is one of the best conferences that I think there are. It's actually my favorite kind of conference that there is anywhere. Those are the ones that I like going to the most. But I decided that I wanted to do something else in Rhode Island again. And I didn't really want to do a B-Sides. I wanted to see if I could do my own thing after kind of working on the B-Sides for 13, 14, 15, 4 years, I guess. I don't know. Math's hard. And I remember one night sitting on Twitter and seeing people discuss, like, what are all the best conferences to go to? Which ones should I go to? Which ones should I see? And I remember suggesting to somebody, like, well, you should check out the B-Sides because I really like those. And, the other question that somebody came up was like, well, are there any social engineering conferences? I was like, I don't know. Since then, I've researched and seen that there's a couple, but I'm like, that would be an outstanding idea. A whole conference just focused on social engineering. So if we can get people in there that are all experts talking about their phishing, their vishing, their smishing, their pretext, their being able to bypass the front desk, I think that would be something that would be really interesting. And because I also often think that network security has come a long way, that I think there's been a real great focus on network security for many years. And I think that a lot of the network engineers and network security people have a great understanding of security, and lots of products are up there. And I think the web was probably the next area where security started catching up. And that's another huge area of interest for me is in the area of web security. And I think there's a lot of great tools for those kinds of things. But I think really the next thing that people are going to be going after is going to be the people. I think the humans, the employees, the staff are still going to be the weakest link. So I think that's probably going to be an area that is a huge area of focus probably for the upcoming future. And that's probably an area where lots of companies and budgets and focus needs to be on the next few years is in the social engineering area and making sure that people aren't giving up the information, giving up the keys to the kingdom, passwords, these kinds of things to keep people out of the company. So I guess that's kind of a really long-winded way of saying that I thought coming up with a somewhat unique conference in an area that was pretty specific and is going to be an area of concern going forward could be something interesting, and hopefully it works out pretty well.
And now, who do you have coming to speak at this conference?
Well, we have quite the lineup of speakers. We have this one talk that I'm pretty excited about that's called Social Engineering Your Way into an InfoSec Career.
Who's the jackass giving that talk?
What's that? Asador Paul.
Yeah, that's right. That's my talk.
He is an ass.
An
Dorian.
ass, a Dorian.
So what kind of things are you thinking that you might be talking about in
I
that?
have no idea.
It was a great title. And Paul's like,
I wrote a description.
Yeah.
Right. It was a pretty good description too.
Right.
Right. And that's all you get so far.
okay.
I will give a presentation. It'll have slides and stuff. I don't know what's going to be on the slides.
Lots of
just
cat
yet.
pictures and
But-
puppy pictures.
It sounds more
Essentially.
like social engineering your way into speaking at a
Yes.
social engineering conference.
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
There'll be probably just pictures on slides that I'll cycle through and say stuff about.
I'm sure that'll be awesome.
Little kung fu here.
Some kung fu thrown in.
Yeah.
There might be a sequel to that talk.
To the Kung Fu talk.
Yeah, there might be. There's a rumor that I heard recently.
Everything that you need to know about security learn from karate?
He'll learn from a sequel, because people were like suggesting they talk about other things, and I'm like, no, like a sequel, it'd still be a kung fu movie, and we just have to come up with all new things that we draw from kung fu movies.
That could be
That's
interesting.
what I'm thinking of going.
Cool. So another talk that I'm super excited about at this conference was just kind of an idea that I had when I was first putting it together is going to be a panel. And this panel is going to have 4 winners from DEF CON Capture the Flag and DerbyCon Capture the Flag, the contest that human hacker Chris Hadnagy puts on. So maybe some people have seen out in Vegas and in DerbyCon, Chris has his glass booth inside of the social engineering village. And these people get put in there, I think it's for 20 minutes, where they have to try to capture as many flags, which the flags are using social engineering to kind of get information out of a target that they were given ahead of time and get to do some research. So the panel there is going to be these people and how they're going to talk about what are their ways, what were some of their methodology, what types of things that they really look at in order for that to work. So the people that we have there, Chris Kirsch, who won DEF CON 25, is going to be speaking. We got Jen Fox from DEF CON 23, won it. Joe Gray won the DerbyCon 6, Capture the Flag. And then we also have Whitney Maxwell. Whitney is...
Oh, wait, sorry, go back to Jen. I met Jen at a SANS event.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was her. She's super nice.
Yes.
That's the same Jen. I think it is.
I have no idea if it's the same Jen that you met. Let's say it is.
Can you figure that out too? Can you use
I'll try
Google
to-
and figure
I'll try
that
to
out?
Google.
Thank you.
I'm sure she's watching and she'll write and be like, yes, that was me.
that was me. I'm pretty sure it was a Jen that said she won the whatever you said it was.
Yes.
the social engineering competition.
That's right.
Thing. Yes.
From DEF CON 23.
Yes.
Yes. And then we also have another one, Whitney Maxwell, that I think is super interesting. She didn't win the black badge, but I think she's a winner in this way because one of the things that Chris Hadnagy does is when you sign up, you get assigned to a target, I think weeks or months in advance, so you can kind of do a lot of the the reconnaissance ahead of time, do your open source intelligence, get all that information gathered. And he also kind of, I saw that he charges like a $20 deposit to make sure that you show up because people don't show up for some reason. I guess, in the moment of seeing all those people, it looks like there's probably 300-400 people in the recon village easily. And you got to sit up there and sit in that glass box and do it all on your own. So I guess that could probably scare people off, either that or maybe some other Vegas flu or something else that can kind of come up. So I guess Whitney said she was just kind of walking by one time at DEF CON 23 with like 2 hours before it was going to happen. And Chris Hadnagy was like, do you want to jump in? She's like, sure, I'll do that. So she had no notice, no warning, she didn't get to do any kind of recon, and she came in 3rd place.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I think, to me, that's a winner. So she's also going to be on the panel, just kind of being able to be, because
I don't think I've met her. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
Because Jen, I definitely think I did meet.
Okay.
And who's this Chris Hagney?
Head nagging?
Hagney?
The human hacker.
Daedry?
Human hacker. I think I've met.
Date.
I've met her or him before. Wait, never mind. It'll come to me. Keep going.
Okay, we'll keep going.
He'll come on you. I mean.
Yep. So one of the things that I think is going to be pretty interesting to hear from Whitney is a lot of social engineering is being able to think on your feet and being able to kind of be in the moment and understand what direction that the conversation is going. And for her to have almost no ability to do any kind of recon, no ability to prep.
Did he have his own TV show where he like hacked into a
No. That was Chris Nickerson.
Oh. Okay.
Tiger Team. I'm a huge fan.
Sorry.
Such a fanboy.
Can't continue, please.
Okay. So
it's good, Rye.
We'll just kind of keep going with this here.
Just ignore Paul. Keep going.
Sorry.
Which
I'll try and compose myself. No promises, though.
It's been a long day for you.
It has been a very long day for me.
Paul's getting
I've
punchy
talked
already.
to so many vendors in the past day and a half. My head's just spinning. I'm loopy.
That must be fun. All right.
Sometimes it was.
So kind of going along the same lines of being able to just kind of think on your feet is one of the things that I've heard about to do when you're a social engineer is to never use a pretext that you don't know. And if you start going into an area where you don't really know what you're talking about, you're probably going to walk yourself down some kind of dead end.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to also have this talk by Tigran Terpanjian, and he's going to be talking about, the name of his talk is Becoming a Human Nmap, which he's talking about kind of sounds to me based on the description, because again, he's somebody that just turned in a description.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen his full talk yet. It sounds as though he's kind of a jack of all trades, where he's well read, he learns all kinds of things. So it sounds as though pretty much whatever direction that his social engineering goes in, that he's probably going to be okay with that. So I think he's kind of talking about that a little bit.
Wait, was Chris at Stake and
Stop.
at Verico?
Move on. Move on.
Oh no, wait, that's Chris Weisopel. Never mind. Carry on.
How many Chris's can you come up with?
No, don't egg me on, Patrick. Just trying to get me to stop, and you're egging me on.
Wait, wasn't he the guy that played Mr. Robot? No, that was Christian. Never mind.
This is awesome.
Gotta go.
I missed you guys.
So can I be, since we're like being goofy, can I be a little bit disruptive?
Sure.
Little known secret. You know my feelings about pen testing, but you probably don't know my feelings about social engineering.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I thought he was
Hold
going
on,
to
let me
say,
get
but you probably don't know my feelings about PCI. But do tell us about your feelings about social engineering, because I'm eager to hear this.
Well, used to do it a long time ago, and kind of went off and did that PCI thing, and came back, and I was surprised to see how much social engineering had grown. I've always thought it's kind of pointless, because what do you do with the results? Because you almost always win. Do you fire the people that did something stupid, or do you train them and educate them? And my thought is always, why don't you just assume you're going to be successful and fast forward to the training and educating? I will throw that out there. I have more thoughts on it, but I'll throw that out there just to be a little bit disruptive. Why the heck? Why a whole conference on social engineering?
I think that's certainly a great question.
It is.
And I like how, Jeff, you're talking about you think that you're always going to win when you do a social engineering engagement. And to some degree, that may be right. And the way that I often look at the penetration testing that we do is, I know some people kind of look at it as like, yeah, let's go hack stuff and break things. And I try to more look at it as like creating a partnership and a team with the company or the target that we're doing the penetration test with, and helping them to kind of lock down their security, make their security better. And I understand that, and that's kind of where I let off with this, that you're right, that the social engineering is probably going to win, because I think that is probably the area that has been not as focused on over the last few years, that that the networks have had all their kind of different products and different focus on it. The web applications have had their focuses, and people aren't really thinking so much yet about the social engineering. So I think having a a whole conference on social engineering and kind of building up what that topic is going to be, and being able to talk with people about, here are the problems with social engineering, here are the types of things that social engineers do, is going to really help to kind of build up that awareness. And even for my conference, like one of the areas that I'm trying to get the word out for now is not so much making it another IT security conference, but making it something that any kind of stakeholders, any kind of businesses should have an interest in. And I've even talked to individual businesses about this. For example, a lawyer's office. A lawyer's office probably doesn't think, tremendously about this kind of thing, but those are certainly records that people want to get access to. If you can get access to mergers and acquisitions, imagine the kind of money that you can make off of that kind of thing. You go into the doctor's office and they start just kind of calling out names. To me, like when they call out in the doctor's office that Patrick Lafferty, you're next. To me, like, I haven't looked at it yet, but is that a violation of HIPAA that they're calling out my name in a doctor's office in front of all the other patients?
Yes.
These are the kind of things that I would like to kind of help to make people more aware of, to kind of lock down these areas to make it better in the future. Because I think this is probably a direction that the hackers, the malicious actors, whatever you want to refer to them as, are probably going to go in the next direction.
Because they just need to use your social security number when they call you out in the doctor's office. That'd be better.
Oh, okay. You can certainly do that as well.
Paul, we're talking now.
Still my show, Jeff. Still my show.
It's not Jeff
pull
Security
it together,
Weekly.
man.
So I think Patrick has a point, though. When you look at, even as a security professional, and try and identify social engineering, largely it's because we've been exposed to this culture. We've read books and even done it in our own penetration testing and gain experience in social engineering. So we have our guard up and are able to identify it, sometimes not always correctly. It really sucks when you are succumb to that and be like, I really shouldn't have clicked on that link. Usually we know what to do right after that to prevent bad things from happening, but it does happen to everyone that we click on stuff where you're like, oh no, crap. Or you can identify, or you're overly kind of cautious and you're like, I'm not opening that because I think it's a really good social engineering. But when you go to validate it, you're like, oh no, someone really did actually intend to send me that document or that link or whatever. So being able to take what we know as security professionals and instill that in what Patrick is saying, if we get other people from other industries and businesses to give them that knowledge, really helps them understand the threats as well as the risk, and can hopefully be more aware of that.
Right. And I think we use social engineering in our
industry.
industry.
Is that better, Jeff?
Much better.
And I think we use social engineering in our industry as a sort of the end-all be-all of, oh my God, danger. But if you think about what humans actually do on any given day, we're involved in some sort of social engineering in any case. Like, we think about before we started the show, who made my drink?
I did.
Yeah, why? Because I said, Paul, what are we drinking?
Right.
I social engineered you into making me a drink.
You did. You didn't even have to use sudo.
I know, but
I need to work on my security.
If you think about the way you interact with humans every day, there's some element of social engineering to try to convince someone to do something for you that maybe they normally wouldn't. Like Johnny going next door to get some ice.
Yeah.
And what did you say to tell him?
He's incentivized to do that.
Right. He's incentivized to do that, but what is he going to do to get that to happen? What did you say to him to do?
I said the girl working is probably cute or something along those lines.
You told him, tell the bartender she looks really nice today.
Oh, yeah.
Won't have any problem.
I did teach him how to do it. Without even thinking about it, I taught him how to do social engineering.
I rest my case.
Yeah.
Rest my case.
And taught him how to sexually harass all at the same time.
No, that's not sexual harassment now. Come on now.
Jeff, you look really nice. You look really nice today.
Exactly. Complimenting someone is not necessarily...
Because he does. I mean, look at him.
Constitute
he looks nice.
Sexual
I do
harassment.
look nice today, and it's getting warm in here all of a sudden.
Now you're sexually harassing me.
So let me go back to a couple things that have been said, because it was a loaded question, obviously, or maybe not so obviously. I think that what you're trying to say is that social engineering, that's the context, but there's a larger issue in our industry, and you touched on it a little bit, that the focus has been on technology. The talk that I went around and gave last year was does DoD security work in the real world? And what I was getting at is the way I learned security way back in the dark ages was you understood what it was that you had that you wanted to protect, what was valuable, and what were the different levels of value, and you made decisions based on protecting specific data. I think one of the problems that is rife in our industry and beyond the whole society is given the rate that technology is advancing, we're relying at times too heavily on the technology, or we think the technology solves all our problems. And we've either, I think for some of it's we've forgotten, but largely we have never taught or we have never educated our customers on the larger premises and ideals of security, which have to do with, I think, a lot of the things that are brought out in social engineering, making people think about their behaviors, making people think about what is it that they have that's sensitive information that somebody else might be interested in having or simply might be interested in stealing or whatever. These days it's mostly people.
And that's a great point,
profit.
Jeff. Like making people understand that the information they have could be valuable, and that people that aren't supposed to have it or have access to something will use them to do it. So making people aware that someone might call you and ask you your password, or someone might call you and ask you to send them an email or click on a link in an email, or someone might ask you to hold the door open for them, making them understand that, look, there are rules regarding the data and or facilities that we have. You have to follow those rules. And just explaining those rules and how sensitive things are can inherently, I think is what you're saying, Jeff, like inherently help people overcome some social engineering attacks.
And I think also along the same lines of what you're saying is, I'm sure you guys and others have done the same thing, like on a explaining to people how important that something as simple as password security is, and having a weak password. Just a few weeks ago, I was probably everybody's been able to do this on penetration tests, where you successfully guess a password from the outside and you get all the way inside, all the way to compromising the entire domain. And most people probably just think, oh, well, that's just my weak password. If somebody gets my password, they're attacking me. Whereas that's one of the things that I really want to get across to people is that these kinds of issues are going to be, maybe it's not a weak password, maybe it's going to be clicking on a phishing link, maybe it's going to be holding the door open for somebody, where then the entire company gets compromised, gets all the financials, all that kind of information all gets leaked right there.
You are merely a means to an end.
But out of curiosity, since obviously you do a lot of social engineering, or and Larry, you said you do it too. When you have some sort of social engineering exercise as part of an engagement, and let's just assume, let's take a leap and say that you're successful to some degree. What do you do then with that information? How do you share that with the customer, and talk a little bit about the interaction, and how do you turn it into a learning experience?
Yeah, that's certainly
a great question.
Yeah. One of the things that I never want to see happen is I never want to see somebody get fired over it. So usually that's kind of an area, and those kind of results are probably the same kind of results that we put in with any other type of penetration test as well, where we're not really looking to call out individuals. Every so often, you will certainly get somebody that says that they want to go after their people who kind of make mistakes. But really what you want to do is to kind of, from our perspective, make this as much about education as possible. Kind of let the people that I'm working with understand that this may be actually your failure, not the person's failure that we were able to social engineer, because it's your job to train these people and make these people to better understand why these kind of things are important. So I'm not going to kind of be all in their face in that kind of way, but that's probably more of the direction that I would probably want to try to get things to go. Like, we were able to do X, Y, and Z. So let's take a look at what is the training that you're doing. What types of things have you talked to your people about? We were able to get in through this vector. Is that something that you have talked to your people about, and why that's important? Because, look, the penetration testers were able to find it. So, the people trying to get in that aren't penetration testers are probably doing the same thing.
I think it's similar to a tabletop exercise for incident response, right? It shows you where some of your weaknesses are. And the entire goal, I feel, that a tabletop exercise should have is that when you identify areas of weakness, that those are things you work on. I think a social engineering exercise is very similar. When there's success, that's the areas that we need to work on. It's discovering, what those areas are that are a huge part of the exercise. So it's a learning moment. And I've also found, and Larry, I know you've experienced this firsthand. We've done it together, actually. That when
we've done this type of testing.
This type of testing, yes, together.
In a partnership.
We've done lots of things together, but many of those can't be mentioned on air. But when you do a successful social engineering test, when you go back or you ask that client or employee months later or even a year later about social engineering attacks, they're like, oh no, I saw how that happened last time. It was kind of embarrassing. I want to use my newfound skills so when they get a call or an email or notice someone in the facility that shouldn't be there, they're like, well, stop that person. This shouldn't happen. And they make some of the best employees that understand their role in security. The problem that I have with that is that employees are ephemeral. People come, people go. I mean, that's just the way it works in pretty much every industry, any business.
Some people come more often than others.
And go more often than others.
Absolutely.
So that your skill set can go out the window. So that makes it a constant exercise, which is why I think another reason why this is important.
The other one I will add that while it's a social engineering exercise, it also it takes only one person to get compromised during that engagement or in any of those types of things. I think it's also a really great challenge on the technical side for those defending networks as an opportunity to do some very detailed detection. So if Paul, if I'm able to get you to turn over my username and password, and I use those as the attacker in some unusual way because it's outside of standards,
should see that.
That should be something you should be able to detect. You should be able to start
lots of vendors. Lots of vendors I talk with in the past day and a half so they can do that.
Yep. Detect lateral movement, detect data exfiltration.
UEBA is a huge now what I believe feature. You see logarithm advertising UEBA. It's a feature, and it's one of the features that can help detect this type of activity. One of the vendors I was talking with, I don't remember which one, but they said that basically they can see if like there's the same user account in use in multiple physical locations. Rather than just kicking both people off, they can say, well, okay, both of you who claim to be the same person, go initiate your two-factor authentication for me again. Even though it's cached and you didn't have to get in or whatever, both of you redo that again. And my kind of question was, well, what if they don't have
two-factor?
What if they don't have two-factor, or what if both people really do successfully two-factor authenticate? Like that, you're gonna call security in both those locations and figure out what's going on. But they'll alert you to that. Actually, I think that was an HP conglomeration they created. Way too much to talk about that here. But yeah,
and I think also back to what Jeff was saying in terms of when you're actually doing the test and going through, earlier we talked about what happens when the employees or the people fail. The other side is when people do the right thing.
Sure.
And that's something you definitely do want to call out. Those are ones that I really like. I consider it a win even for myself if somebody calls me out. For example, one time I was doing a phone social engineering.
I never really liked doing the phone. I give you everyone credit that does it.
And I know most people say that kind of thing. Most people say they like being in person. Personally, I think being in person is so much harder.
Well, it's equally as nerve-wracking, certainly, or maybe more nerve-wracking because you're physically there.
Yeah, it would be more nerve-wracking for me because I think my face turns bright red. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying. Versus when I'm on the phone, I can be smiling, my face can be bright red, I can be sweating. They have no idea.
When we ran the team, when I was actually doing this type of work, I would have other people more skilled in social engineering than I. And I would kind of do like the physical assessment. So I'd be like, all right, you know what? While you're talking to the security guard, I'm just going to walk in and there's like a back room in the conference room behind the security desk that I just walked into. And I'm going to plug my device in, rearrange things so no one sees it. And then that was like my role because the social engineering stuff is fascinating.
They were the diversion.
They were the diversion.
You just kind of slipped in with the crowbar. And
yeah.
So yeah, I remember this one call I was on. And what I was trying to do was I had spoofed their VPN, and I told them like I'm calling from the IT security department. We had a breach, and we're trying to see if everybody's credentials have been breached. So what we do is we set up this page. We need you to log in, and it'll tell you if your credentials were breached. So can you just go to that? And a sad number of people actually did it. But I had this one woman on the phone, and she's like, "I know what you're doing. I know who you are. I'm part of the IT security lunch meeting, and you're a social engineer."
Wow.
Yeah.
Props to her. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why I made sure I spelled that out in the report. And I was like, that is awesome. I'm so glad that you're saying that kind of thing. I totally understand where you're coming from, but can you fill it out anyway for me?
Ma'am, can I get your name?
And wait, and
Can you
did
spell
she?
that for
Well,
me?
she was like, okay, what do you want me to do? I was like, just put in your username, put in your password. Don't tell it to me because you're right. I could be a social engineer and you never want to give that to anybody over the phone. So just put it in. She's like, okay, I'll put it in.
Oh.
She didn't, though. I was
Oh,
so...
she didn't.
No,
Oh,
she
okay,
didn't.
good.
Oh,
Good.
Yes.
the other one that was my favorite during that same engagement was I was talking to this one woman, and she was like, oh, what do you need me to do? And then I could hear in the background some other woman yell, don't you dare do that. Hang up right now. She's like, I got to go.
Wow.
And I was like, great.
Awesome.
So those were a couple that I called out specifically in the report by name,
Right.
exactly what they did, because those are the things that we do want, their employer to know. Like, these are the ones that are working. Maybe you can go talk to them and find out, like, what was it that tripped it off for you? That
And have them spread the message.
absolutely.
Yep. We've had some great ones that we've done. That one of our guys, Jimmy, one of the founders of InGuardians, has done some masterful stuff. That along the lines of calling up the outsourced help desk and calling up and say, yeah, I can't remember my password. Can you reset it for me? And they said, well, I see that you don't have a security question set, so would you like to set it now? Yes, please. Okay, so then I can reset your password. They got better. The next one was, I see you don't have a security question set, so would you like to set it now? Yes, please. Well, but because you didn't have one set before this call, I can't reset the password for you. Oh, well, is there anything you can do? I've got to get this report to so and so, and they've got to get it in the next half hour. Can you call my supervisor? Oh yeah, absolutely. We can call your supervisor. Do you have their number? Yes.
Here it is.
Yes.
555.
Yes, we do. 555-1212. Yeah. Call the supervisor.
Oh, that was your number.
Some-
You were the supervisor.
Somebody else was a supervisor.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
And you answer, and it's, what do you want? I'm on vacation.
Yes. So it's
This
as
better
short
be,
as possible.
This better be
yeah.
fast. Yeah, reset the damn password. Click.
But again, other than these being fun stories to share, where was the learning experience in that? And you bring up Jimmy. Jimmy and I used to work together
Yeah.
because I'm sitting here thinking, my first social engineering exercise was probably over 20 years ago. The first time we did a phishing attack was probably 23 years ago. So my secondary question is, what's changed? How has the craft of social engineering evolved in the last, let's say, round off 20 years? But the first question is, other than fun stories, tell me about the benefit. Tell me about how people learned a lesson and did better moving
So
on.
Jeff, specifically in my case, the call center, after numerous tests, refined their processes and procedures and their training. And by the time that was actually done, we were unable to successfully social engineer someone to get a password changed in their call center. And then they changed call center folks, and we redid the test, and it was like cakewalk again. They knew now what to do. They knew how to educate that call center as to some of the things that they had apparently missed during some of the changes. So the process improvement for tightening their security overall was a huge benefit in some of those cases.
Yeah, I also had
let me interject real quick, and then I'll let you guys answer my questions. But when we used to do social engineering 20 years ago, what was popular then was to outsource security. It was called managed security services back then. So, you were hiring companies to do your firewall monitoring and intrusion detection and stuff like that. There, I think it's absolutely fair game to try to, or even physical security guards. In the early days, it was funny because people used to say, well, we don't want to outsource security. I'm like, so are the security guards at the front desk your employees? Oh, no, they're such and such a company. I'm like, okay, so you do outsource security. Oh, yeah. But, if it's a third party, I think it's absolutely fair game to test them to make sure that they're meeting their contractual obligations. But go ahead.
Yeah, I also remember along the same lines of what Larry was just kind of talking about. Had a another phone social engineering engagement, and the scope was kind of just wide open. Do whatever you want to try to get any kind of information, which is also kind of interesting. So one of the things, we just kind of went after the typical. It's like, let's see if we can get a password change through the help desk. So usually one of the first kind of reconnaissance kind of calls is, what information are they going to need in order to change it? Because we weren't given any kind of information. So we start calling the first few times, and they're like, well, you need to answer some kind of questions. So they start asking the questions, and of course I didn't know what the questions were going to be the first few times, so I'm just kind of guessing through them and like, nope, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And then finally, eventually, we figured out that we needed to answer 3 out of 4 correct. So the questions were, I think, home address, personal email address, personal phone number, and also last 4 of social. And I was like, oh, okay. So those are the types of things that we need to go back and do some kind of reconnaissance on. So we started calling a few more times, knowing that it's pretty hard to get the last 4 compared to those other 3. There's sources out there, whether they're paid or open source, where you can find somebody's home address, you can find their email address, you can find their phone number. So
you can always go on the dark web and try and find their social security number, but
Oh, I can never remember the last 4 of my social. You got another question?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where we went. We kind of went on the privacy angle. We're like, well, that's not something I want to disclose. Haven't you seen some of the issues that other companies have had where they kind of validate on that? And we were really pushing them toward the other 3. And then finally, after a number of calls, they were like, no, we just had a policy change because something's going on where people keep calling for password changes. And now the last 4 are required, or we have to call your department head, at our directory phone number and get this approved. So that was kind of an instance where during the course of the 5-day test, the internal policy changed.
That's awesome.
And made it more secure. And on Friday when we had the debrief call, I had the CIO and a few different people, and I was walking them through it, and I was like, oh, by the way, is the head of the help desk there? Like, oh yeah, he's kind of in the back. And like, they kind of also mentioned how he's smiling like the Cheshire Cat because he knew what was happening. So I just kind of said, well, whatever he did was a really good thing. He stopped us, and there was not much more we could do unless there's somewhere that we can get access to your employees' social security numbers. So that was kind of the learning, the education, where this company changed their policy based on us trying to kind of work with what they currently had, where they thought they had it locked down. It's like, these 4 questions, only those people are going to know those questions, and they should be able to get at least 3 of them right.
And you really only know that your policies and procedures are working if you test them, right? Like, how do you know what you're doing or not doing today, the likelihood that you'll fall victim to a social engineering attack, unless you actually put your employees through it? And I feel like you're
testing for the positive condition is great, but you also have to test for the negative.
And stuff changes all the time, right? You may change the single sign-on service you're using. You might change a policy or a procedure. You might change your 2-factor authentication. You might change what questions you're asking of people, how you're asking the questions, based on your technology or just policy and procedure changes or improvement for better, worse, or indifferent. So being able to test where you are today is important to make sure that you've made those adjustments, like in your story, Patrick, where you talked about they actually said, well, if we don't think we're under attack, 3 out of 4 is okay. If we feel like we are being attacked, then make that a requirement. That's awesome. That's
absolutely.
Awesome.
And I think that's probably the reason for any kind of penetration test, is just to kind of see what is your current stance, where are your holes, because I think anybody who's in charge of a network or in charge of any company's security might have their own biases and kind of see, like, I think that we're rock solid around this kind of thing, and I think there's no way anybody can get in. And it's kind of nice having a third party to kind of come at them and look for those kind of unbiased, outside, black box types of holes that might be there.
Do we answer your questions, Jeff?
Yep, I do want to share one story, maybe 2. I was doing what we would have called a vulnerability assessment, probably back in the late 90s. It was for a pharmaceutical company, and we were doing penetration testing, but we were doing it on site, sort of from the internal perspective. And so we would show up at, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock, and we were going through all the procedures at the security desk to get authorized entry and go in. Actually, there is 2 stories here. I was sort of the supervisor, so I had another guy with me that was doing a lot of the testing, and I was just sort of free to walk around. And I remember I was I was like in a closet that was down the hall from the office that we were supposed to be staying in one night. And it was probably like 2:00 in the morning, and the security guard was making his rounds, and I'm sure he knew that who we were and why we were there. But I was in the middle of their equipment closet or something, or their phone closet, and I'm like, what are all these wires going to? And he just kind of walked by and said, hey, how you doing? I'm like, okay, I'm doing great. And I always thought that was kind of funny. And then the other story was the last day we checked in at normal hours, and we had spent every day it had taken like 15-20 minutes to get through security just to get in the building. And while we're waiting to get checked in for like our out briefing, some person walked up to the desk and said, hey, my wife works here, I don't, but I need to go to the credit union, is it still downstairs? And the guard's like, oh yeah, go ahead. And the guy walked right past, and my buddy and I, we just kind of looked at each other like, man, if we were doing social engineering, we just figured out how to do it.
What was I going to say? I think we're just getting ready to wrap up, so we'll get some more drinks in between segments.
That sounds awesome.
Does that sound good?
Yes, please.
I did have another question, but my glass being empty is very distracting. So I don't
Priorities.
Oh, what was the Chris?
Is there another Chris?
Roberts. Isn't the Chris the one that the plane
sideways
plane hacking thing?
Yep.
He wasn't really
Dragon.
hacking. That's not the Chris. Different Chris.
Different
Chris.
Another Chris.
Can we
That's good. You thought of another Chris.
Yes.
And of course, since I'm here to promote the conference, can I at least tell people how to find out more about it?
Yes, we should do that.
We should do that.
I was not going to end the segment.
Oh, and there's another person that I think you know who's going to be speaking there.
Is it Chris?
Is it April?
It's April Wright.
Love April.
She's
awesome.
The best. Yeah, she's going to be talking about how to get management buy-in at work and social engineering at work.
It's awesome.
That's totally going to be awesome. So our conference website is se-ri.org, and we're also offering a little bit of a discount for a week, just for
1 week, limited time offer.
1 week for Security Weekly listeners only. So if you go to the website, we're selling our tickets through Eventbrite. So if you want to go buy your tickets and you want to get $10 off, you can do that with Security Weekly 10 as the discount code. So at se-ri.org. We have all the presentations listed there. We have a whole bunch of information.
Not the slides, just the titles and descriptions.
So far, right. We might have the slides at some point if you want to see pictures of kittens and things.
True.
So yeah, we'll have that eventually. And I think we're also going to have some workshops, some training.
Nice.
That's going to be happening. We're going to have a class on social engineering, class on ethical hacking.
Is that Chris guy going to actually be there?
I don't know. I'm hoping.
Okay.
That'll be awesome if that Chris guy is going to be there.
Then I could probably remember who he is. If I saw him, I think I'd remember.
I'll introduce you.
Who he is. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
And one of the other fun things that I'm actually putting together right now is going to be an OSINT Capture the Flag competition. So I think that could make it a little bit fun as well. So
very cool.
Fantastic.
That's what we got.
With that, we're going to take a short break, come back, talk about security news for this week. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.